All right, so today we're going to take a look at the distance formula. If you're taking notes with us, this note sheet can be found on page 5 of your paper packet that you received. So again, I encourage you to get it out, take notes as we go through the examples so that you have something to reference back when you are completing your assignment. The other thing is I think it's helpful to make sure you have a calculator with you. We're going to be talking about different strategies to use to compute distance, especially when we get to 2D figures. And I'm also going to show you an online resource that can be used to accurately get the correct answers, because it is a little hard when you're looking at when you're using various types of calculators to know the correct way to enter in the information. So we're going to take a look at that. So again, page 5 of the note sheet if you'd like to follow along, and make sure that you have a calculator with you. If not, take a pause and go grab. All right, so let's take a quick review of distance of line segments on a one-dimensional number line. So if you remember, we looked at this earlier in the year, and the method was to subtract the coordinates of the points. And also remember that your answer is always positive. So again, coordinates are the numbers that are associated with the letters, the points. So if we're looking at example A here, L, M. So again, the first thing you need to do is identify the points. And then we're going to subtract the coordinates. So we're going to say negative 24. We're going to subtract. Now, M is 1 shy of 12, so we should hopefully realize that that's the number 11. So we're going to go ahead and subtract 11. And for our answer, that gives us a negative 35. Now again, guys, answer is always positive. Think about it. Distance is always positive. We would never say I just traveled negative 4 miles to get to my friend's house. So you have to just kind of think logically about your answer. So again, we're going to flip this and make this a positive 35 because again, distance is always positive. All right, so let's take a look at D. We're going to jump a little bit all over on these examples. So let's go over to D, N, K. So same kind of idea. We're going to identify our coordinates and subtract them. So here is N. It is, now here's negative 18. Remember, this isn't negative 19. This is one less. So negative 17, negative 16. And then K is over here, which counting on from 30, 30, 31, 32. So K is at 33. So again, we're going to subtract our values. So negative 16 minus 33. And doing our math here, we get a negative 49. Now again, distance can never be negative. So just make sure to be thinking logically about your answers. Distance can never be negative, so we're going to switch it over to positive 49. All right, so let's take a look at our second method. And the second method is just to simply count from point to point. So you could count, or sometimes I refer to it, and I'm sorry guys, I'm trying to keep my writing here as neat as possible. You're going to count or quote hop from point to point. So again, you can do a combination of these. I'm guilty that if I'm calculating from L to M, I sure as heck do not want to be hopping the whole way. I don't want to be counting like that. So subtraction in that one is easier. But however, there are ones that like maybe they're, closer together, or you find you're a little bit more successful with the hop method. Or let's say you just forget about the subtraction. You're like, oh, I can't remember if you subtract or add, but you know that counting is always an option. So again, just showing you just some different methods. So let's take a look at LN. This is example E here. So from L to N, again, these guys are pretty close as far as points. I think I could definitely just hop and find my answer. So again, when we're hop and we're counting, we're going to start with like the first hop would just be 1. So I went a distance of 1, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So again, a little bit harder for me to go in there with my stylus, but I just want a distance of 8. So again, if they're closer together or you feel more successful with hop counting, that would absolutely be a strategy that you could use. All right, so let's take a look at something new. So distance of a line segment on the coordinate plane. So we talked about how lines on a coordinate plane are two-dimensional because let's say if I'm looking at this little example here, that G, that dot G, it's just not identified by like, hey, it's at the coordinate 4. It actually is 2 measurements, right? It's got an X value and a Y value determining its location. So that being said, it's going to be a little bit more involved to figure out the distance. So there's a formula for that. All right, so I'm going to bring my screen up here so I can stretch myself out, give a little more space to write. So here's the formula. in order to find the distance of a diagonal or coordinate plane line, two-dimensional line, we're going to take the square root and we're going to first subtract our x values and then square it. Then we're going to add to that the difference of our y value. So you should still kind of see the idea of subtraction in there. And again, you know that a coordinate on a coordinate plane is going to have an x and a y value. So in a sense, if I'm subtracting or finding the distance between 2 points, here's my first point, my x and my y. Here's my second point, x and y. So just to kind of make a little bit more sense of it. So you're still subtracting, but it's a little bit more complex. We throw a square root in there and we throw squared numbers in there. Two things to note, and we'll kind of go with these as they come, but we're going to subtract the values in the same order, both x and y coordinates. And we're going to round, I'm asking you to round your answers to the nearest 10, which means you only need one number after the decimal, if you get a decimal answer. But 9 times out of 10, distances are going to be decimals. They're not going to be exactly rosy on the spot. So let's take a look at some examples. All right, so the first one here. Now for all of your homework examples and for the practice, I do want you to practice writing the formula because I do think that that's important for you to be able to set it up correctly. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get my square root symbol up there, and I'm going to subtract my x values. If you remember in an ordered pair, x comes first. So my x values are 3 and 2. And I'm going to start with a 3. I'm just going to work left to right. So 3 minus 2. Oh, that looks a little rough in there. So 3 minus 2. I'm going to square it. Then our formula tells you we're going to put a plus sign in here. And then we're going to subtract our y values. So we're going to say 1 minus 3. And we're also going to square that. Now, let's take a minute and talk about computation. I'm going to be completely honest. This is a disaster typing in calculators. There's always some sort of trick of how you have to enter it in, whether you need parentheses, whether you don't, if you need an extra one, the steps you do first before computing the square root. I'll be honest, it depends on what calculator you're using on how you correctly enter it in. Now, if we were in school, I'd give you all the same calculator, we'd throw it up on the board and we'd work through how you do it. However, I know that's not really possible being remote and everyone having access to different calculators and resources. So when in doubt, you can also use online resources. There are plenty of websites out there that will do the distance calculations for you. So I would highly encourage that we use this resource. So let's talk about where it is. So if we go to our Canvas page, right? Now I'm using period 8, but period 5, yours looks exactly the same. We're going to scroll down, and again, this was Monday's assignment. I'm going to click on Monday. Now, even if you're doing this on Tuesday, if you go to this assignment and you're like, oh no, I'm missing the distance formula part 1 assignment. When you click on it, you should see here number 2 says distance calculator online. You see that there? So we're going to go ahead and click it. And what's going to come up is super straightforward. Minus the fact that I just got an ad and it's deciding it didn't like me there for a minute. So, okay, so here is our distance calculator. So if you look, we've got an x and a y value, that's our first coordinate, and an x and a y value, that's our second coordinate. You're just simply going to plug in these coordinates. So if I look at A, it's 3, 1, and B is 2, 3. So you're going to say 3, 1, that's point A. Point B was the coordinates of 2, 3. Then we're going to simply hit calculate. And right down here below is the distance between those 2 points, 2.23607. Now again, for the sake of our assignments, you're only going to go one spot past the decimal. So for this first answer, we're going to write down 2.2. Now, if you want to try, you can absolutely, in your calculator, on your phone, whatever resource you have, plug it all in, see if you can get the right answer now that you know it's 2.2. If you can, you're more than welcome to use that. However, again, rather than trying to troubleshoot everybody's calculator, and I don't necessarily know every way to put it in the calculator, it would be trial and error, knowing the correct answer. So that being said, I think the online resource is the best bet. Taking a look at number 2. So again, I want you to set up your formula. So there's our square root sign. The first thing I'm going to do is subtract my x values. So I'm going to take -8 and subtract 1, square it. My formula tells me I'm putting a plus sign in between there. Then I'm going to subtract my y values. And again, I'm moving from C to D from left to right. So just make sure when you're doing the second subtraction that I'm moving the same direction. So I'm going to still start with C. That was my first y value. And I'm going to subtract because that's part of my formula. Now, my second ordered pair y value is a -3. So just make sure that you're careful with negative coordinates. It's not just one negative sign in there. It's subtracting a negative coordinate. So just be careful of that. Then I also have to make sure to square that. From there, again, I would encourage you to use the online calculator. So let's take a look at how we work that. So -8, 6, 1, -3. So -8, 6. My second ordered pair there was 1 and a negative. Now, the negative sign, guys, again, computers vary, but it usually is found up by the number row system at the top. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, and then typically you see the negative sign. So if you're having trouble, ask, I can help you. But that's typically where you find that negative sign. All right, so hitting calculate, I get 12.7. And again, I'm only looking to go one number past to be rounding it to the nearest tenth. So 12.7 here is my distance for that second example. All right, take a look at the next two. So again, just want you to get familiar and how you set it up and feel confident moving forward. So finding the distance between point E and F. So there's my square root sign. I'm going to subtract my x values. So 2 minus 6 squared. Easy to forget the squared. Make sure you're putting it in there. And then again, I'm going to subtract my y values. So 3 minus 6 squared. So again, using that online resource, I'm going to plug in my answer or my coordinates. I forgot what they are already. All right, so 2, 3, 6, 6. 2, 3, 6, 6. So again, I'm going to plug in my first ordered pair is 2, 3. My second ordered pair is 6, 6. And you're going to hit calculate, or it just automatically does it for you. And I'm going to have a distance of 5. So again, it's not impossible to get a whole number. It's unlikely to get a whole number, but occasionally you will. So if you do not panic. It is possible. All right, find the distance. Last one here. So between the points -3, 4 and the points 5, 1. All right, so let's set up our equation here. So the formula tells you we take the square root in this first bracket. We should be subtracting our x values. So our x values are -3 and 5. Then we're going to add, and I'm going to subtract my y values, 4 minus 1, and square it. So -3, 4, and 5, 1. So -3, 4, 5, 1. And I hit calculate, and you get 8.5. All right, so guys, quick recap for your homework. If you are working in the paper packet, okay, you're only going to do sections 1 and 2. So let me give you a brief look at it here. So this matches up with your paper packet if you have one. If you do not, you're just simply on a piece of paper going to write down A, B, D, E and give me your answer. And then for the bottom half, 1, 2, 3, 4, write your formula, plug in the numbers, use the online calculator, plug in your coordinates, hit calculate, and write your answer for me. But I do want to make sure that people are aware. So this is page 6 of your paper packet, and you are only to do section 1 and section 2. Now there is a third section. You people with the paper packet, you're going to see graphs on the bottom. Don't cross it out. We are going to get to it, but not today. We're going to look at it later this week. So for today's assignment, you're just doing section 1 and 2. So number line calculations and then ordered pair calculations. So you've got 8 problems in total. And if you have paper packet, go ahead and submit a picture when you are finished. And again, if you do not have the paper packet, just write down the answers and send me a picture the same way through your assignment on Canvas. Reach out if you need any help. I would encourage you again to use that online calculator. I think it's the most successful for us to troubleshoot through while we're working remote. Good luck.